if we could have Bruce Gilmore.
Afternoon by Mr. Klim that there were some issues concerning the Kmart lease, and I was asked if I would come over and simply give some brief history to the council, and certainly to indicate to everyone that the lease is a public record. It's available at the airport, and all one needs to do is make a request, and it will be readily available. And I'm going to leave my copy with Mr. Rugo tonight so that I comply with his earlier request. Very briefly, and I do mean briefly, the Kmart Plaza, so-called Cape Town Plaza, I think is its proper name, has been under the jurisdiction and control, at least as a landmass, since before the Second World War. And during the Second World War, you can appreciate that the Department of Defense took the airport, and it became a training facility that former President Bush apparently learned how to fly. At the end of the Second World War, when the crisis had passed, the United States government retransferred the property back to the jurisdiction and control of the Barnstable Airport Commission, with the caveat that it continued to be used for, quote, airport purposes. As this council is very much aware, the airport properties or holdings can be divided into two separate categories: that which is within the fence, and certain properties that have been acquired or pre-existed outside the secure area. And those properties include Mildred's, for example, the former motel on Route 132, the Sullivan property, and it also includes the Cape Town Plaza. In 1968, at a time that some of us have vague memories of, and shortly before that, and I'm seeing Mr. Toby laugh, he might remember Storyland. And people are smiling because Storyland is the site of the current Cape Cod Mall. But in 1968, there were visionaries and there were people that weren't visionaries, and certain people believed that the 132 corridor would become a very valuable piece of property, and it did. But in 1968, the people that envisioned the development of commercial properties convinced, I've often joked with the late Dick Anderson that he did better for his clients on that lease than the Brinks people did, and they had guns. In any event, in 1968, specifically the May town meeting, a 56-year lease was approved by the Airport Commission and the town meeting. And because the length of the lease exceeded 7 years, it was recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And the term of the lease, at least as it relates to our consideration this evening, the first term was 40 years, and that 40 years expired on May 31st of 2008. The lease contained two extensions, one for 10 years and one for 6 years. The lease provided that if the lessee notifies the Town of Barnstable Airport Commission more than 1 year from the expiration date, the lease will be extended. And it was, in fact, extended, and we're now in term 2. The current rental revenue from the lease is $60,000 per year. Nothing more, nothing less. In years 45 to 49, the lease will increase by $5,000. And in years 49 to 56, the concluding year, it'll be $70,000. We currently have a 15-and-a-half-year lease to live with. And parenthetically, or by way of background, since I've been representing the airport going back to 1979, this lease has been extended 3 times, been assigned 3 times. In total, it's been assigned 5 times. And the lease itself has sold for millions because of the value of the location, with its buildings, by the way. So let's not be confused. This is a land lease. The current lessee has a $10 million mortgage on the property. And I was approached not by one but over the last couple of years by at least what we might describe as 3 suitors, people who would like to own that property. The current tenant called and asked for an extension beyond 2024. And in the alternative, could they purchase it? And the short answer to that question was no. And the reason for the short answer was because under Chapter 30B, Section 16, at the expiration of the lease, it has to go through a very transparent and public bidding process. If it is to be sold, it has to be sold to the highest bidder. And if it's to be leased, it has to be leased to the most favorable of the various people who submit proposals. So I asked the current tenant, are you willing to surrender the lease today and throw your hat in the ring with everybody else who might want to purchase the property? And his response, quite predictably, are you nuts? So when other people have called, I get the same argument, but this would be so much more beneficial to the town. Well, the short answer, it might be. But it would also be illegal because we have a current lease that we are committed to. And until such time as the lease expires or the tenant defaults, we're obligated to honor that lease. So any suggestion that this council or this town manager or this special town council can do anything other than honor the lease is just wrong. So the judgments in hindsight of 1968 may have been flawed, but they were the best judgment of a body of people in 1968. So the only other thing that I want to try to make clear is that the airport has been self-sufficient for many, many years. And one of the reasons that it is not a burden on the taxpayers is because it has revenues from its various rental agreements and its operational agreements. And we receive from the federal government on an annual basis any number of grants. You're certainly aware of the grants that would assist us with road improvements in the terminal. But we get many other grants, whether it's for instance landing systems or runway extensions or aviation easements or whatever. I've probably in the last 25 years signed 50 or 60 grant assurances, putting my name on the line saying that the town of Barnstable is complying with the various FAA regulations and grant assurances, one of which is that all revenue generated on the airport, save for things that are properly billed by the town to the airport, police services, fire services, engineering services, legal services, must remain on the airport for aviation airport purposes. They cannot be diverted to general government. And as nice as that might be, that's been litigated in Los Angeles and lost. And Los Angeles had to pay a considerable amount of money back to the federal government for misapplication, if you will, of airport revenues. So I just want everybody to be aware, and candidly, that's a live issue for the moment in the Retrix case. We've been accused by Retrix of diverting funds to the general fund. And an FAA audit has determined that didn't happen. But I would be happy to answer any questions that you have, but Mr. Klim was very concerned that I come before you, and not only for your benefit, but for people in the community who might not be aware of either the existence of these agreements or the historical content or context.